This is the city from which Germany has been governed since the Bismarck era. For 12 years, Berlin was the capital of the Third Reich. Buildings constructed by the Nazis can still be found in the city today. Though Hitler wasn't fond of Berlin, he did succeed in leaving a lasting impression on its cityscape. Relics from the National Socialist past turn up in unusual places. Hitler's aim was to transform Berlin into the future world capital of Germania. Some of the structures from that era provide an insight into his megalomaniac vision. When the Reich's fall became inevitable, Hitler opted to stay in the unloved capital until the end. The former local Gau headquarters at Friedrichshain survived the war and the fall of the Reich. Today, the building houses a publishing company. This massive construction was quite deliberately erected on this site in the mid-1930s, as it was right next door to a public hall in which Hitler's stormtroopers and the communists used to brawl at political meetings. True to the style of the National Socialist approach to art, the pompous staircase is lined with natural stone. Even though Gauleiter Josef Goebbels was rarely seen here, the building's purpose was to keep the memory of the Nazi victory alive in Red Berlin. On Hitler's orders, Goebbels came to the capital of the Weimar Republic on the 9th of November 1926 with the mission to make the quarreling party members see reason. Within a few years, the talented propagandist transformed the radical splinter group into a powerful organization. Right next door to the Gau House, the Nazis built a housing estate for deserving fighters for the movement, which also survived the war. In honor of the Gauleiter, it was named Goebbels Heimstätte, or Goebbels Homestead. Berlin-based journalist Sven Felix Kellerhoff has been investigating the history of these well-preserved buildings for a long time. Many of his publications deal with the city's National Socialist past.
The strategy of Josef Goebbels when he became the new Gauleiter can be summed up in a single word: provocation. He would deliberately send his stormtroopers to march across working-class areas, accepting the fact that many of his own people would get injured or even killed in the fighting, because he only had one goal. He wanted publicity, wanted to be noticed. His aim was to spread the notion in the German public that the communists were preparing for civil war and a revolution, so that he and the National Socialists would then appear as the saviors of the nation. And evidently, his strategy worked.
From the party headquarters at Wilhelmsplatz, Gauleiter Goebbels resolutely paved his Führer's way to power in Berlin. This building in the Zimmerstraße was bricked up during the GDR years as it bordered on the Berlin Wall. Up until the end of the war, it housed one of the head offices of Goebbels' propaganda instruments. It was the seat of the party newspapers Völkischer Beobachter and Angriff. After the accession to power in 1933, members of the opposition were tortured to death in its cellars. Yet the building marks an even more important event in the history of Hitler's Berlin. In 1927, the Führer gave his first official speech in the German capital in a dance club named Clou in this courtyard. As Hitler was banned from speaking publicly for many years, he gave his first speeches in Berlin at private meetings. After the ban was lifted, he would soon fill larger halls, such as the Neue Welt and the Sportpalast, with people willing to listen to his inflammatory anti-Semitic speeches. Despite his success, Hitler sustained a love-hate relationship with Berlin for the rest of his life.
He didn't like big cities. He rejected this way of life because he felt it was Jewish modernistic. However, he knew that ultimately the only way to power in Germany was by conquering the cities, and in particular by conquering the Reich's capital.
On the 30th of January 1933, Hitler left his abode in Berlin, the Hotel Kaiserhof, to take over the government. The restrictions of the Treaty of Versailles, the world economic crisis and unemployment drove many voters to the Nazi Party. In order to make the world believe that Germany was a peace-loving country, the Nazis staged the 1936 Olympic Summer Games in Berlin. Hitler personally oversaw the designing of the Olympiastadion and the adjacent sports facilities.
Im Reichssportfeld wird für die Feier der 11. Olympiade eine einzigartige Kampfstätte geschaffen. Das Kernstück des weiten Reichssportfeldes ist das Olympiastadion, die Deutsche Kampfbahn. Um den Innenraum erheben sich Zuschauerplätze für mehr als 100.000 Personen. Unzählige Arbeiter sind Tag und Nacht am Werk. Auch sie schaffen in ihrer Art für die olympische Idee. Wie das ganze deutsche Volk bemüht ist, seinen Gästen einen würdigen Empfang zu bereiten.
Hitler
was involved in the choice of the stone to be used in the architectural plans almost from the beginning in 1934. He visited the construction site several times and directly intervened in many issues. In the presence of the French ambassador, André-François Poncet, Hitler said that he didn't like the stadium. He thought it looked too modern.
Hitler war das noch zu modern.
Ich verkünde die Spiele von Berlin zur Feier der 11. Olympiade neuer Zeitrechnung als eröffnet.
From his seat in the VIP stand, the dictator was forced to watch as a black US athlete, of all people, became the favorite among the spectators, including the Germans. Jesse Owens beat Hitler's top Aryan athletes to win 4 gold medals. Nearly 4,000 athletes from 49 nations took part in the Games. Most male contestants were housed in the Olympic Village in Döberitz near Berlin. Today the complex stands empty. The area is fenced and the windows of the small houses are boarded up. Back in 1936, the Olympic Village was proudly presented in propaganda films. Foreign journalists were obviously impressed too.
The world would be a happier place,
wrote the correspondent of the British Observer,
if the youth of all nations could be brought together in this way more frequently.
The Second World War shattered this vision. After the end of the Games, the complex was used by the Wehrmacht until the Red Army occupied the area in 1945. Since the departure of the Soviet troops in 1992, the buildings have been empty, scarcely protected from the elements. Little remains of the time when the novel medium of television transmitted live from the Games and the Olympic Village.
Der aktuelle Bilddienst des Fernsehsenders Paul Nipkow lädt Sie heute ein zu einem Streifzug durch das olympische Dorf. Nun durch das Tor, vorbei am Pförtner und nun sind wir drin. Auf dem viel gelästerten märkischen Sand ist ein kleines Paradies entstanden. Die deutsche Wehrmacht hat es erbaut. Hier ein paar Aktive vor dem Hause Dessau. Wundervoll passen sich die Häuser der Landschaft an und sie sind auch herrlich, massiv und fest gebaut. Es muss ein wundervolles Wohnen sein. Und immer dabei ein Junge vom Olympischen Ehrendienst. Und hier ein amerikanisches Superschwergewicht.
Today, many of the buildings are very run down. So far, no one has thought of a way to put this extensive site to good use. The old indoor swimming pool, where in 1936 the athletes would prepare for their races, is partly burned out. For 2 weeks, Nazi Germany presented itself to the outside world as a peace-loving nation. The Games brought international acceptance for the Third Reich. Only a few far-sighted people realized the Nazis' true intentions. The Jewish novelist Victor Klemperer, for instance, wrote in his diary,
"It is continuously drummed into Germans as well as visitors that what one sees here is the upswing, the blossoming, the new spirit, the unity, the glory and the splendor, and naturally also the peaceful spirit of the Third Reich that affectionately embraces the whole world. The chants and the persecution of the Jews are all forbidden, and the offensive articles have disappeared from the newspapers for the duration of the Olympiad, until the 16th of August.
The less peace-loving face of the new Germany manifested itself at the huge Olympic Tower at the western end of the Reich sports field. It was here that a solemn commemorative service took place for the students who, in 1914, supposedly threw themselves into the machine gun fire of their enemies in Langemarck, Belgium, defying death, an ominous warning for what would happen here later in April 1945. Yet at first, after the end of the Olympic Games, the area was frequently used as a marching ground for National Socialist propaganda functions. It was mainly young people who were impressed by the mystic pomp of the Nazis. Television journalist Reinhard Appel took part in many mass marches in the presence of the dictator in the Olympic Park when he was a boy.
Being in the Hitler
Youth, we would often get orders to applaud or shout Heil at large-scale events. And I was one of those who was supposed to shout Heil. It was 1938, I remember, and there was a celebration for the Hitler Youth, and the whole Reich sports field was full of boys. Back then, I thought it was funny to start off a wave of hailing. Nowadays, you'd call it a Mexican wave. So I would start yelling, Heil, and was very pleased when the entire stadium would respond and follow suit, until I was noticed by a Hitler Youth leader and was thrown out for improper behavior.
Because the National Socialist Youth was to be systematically indoctrinated, the Hitler Youth homes erected all over the Third Reich were identical. A prototype can still be seen today in the northern outskirts of Berlin. It was designed in the style of a rural half-timbered house and presented at a propaganda show on Berlin's exhibition grounds. Later, it was transferred here to the Volkspark Rehberge. Physical fitness was paramount for National Socialist youths. Military training began at a very early age. The Hitler Youth homes served the purpose of controlling the boys' spare time. The date, 1936, can still be made out on the fireguard, and little else has changed in the festive hall of the former Hitler Youth home. Only the Nazi symbols were removed after the end of the war. Today, the home is used as a recreational facility for mentally handicapped children. During the Nazi regime, people like these would be categorized as unworthy to live and ruthlessly murdered. During the mid-1930s, administration buildings in the style of the New Era were erected all over Berlin. Air Minister Hermann Göring had an entire street front demolished at the Wilhelmstrasse in order to create a suitable official building for his ministry. Gradually, the entire government district was given the architectural features of the National Socialist spirit.